So my name's Travis Sansom. I work for Microsoft. I'm inside Microsoft. I'm called a TSP. That stands for Technical Solution Professional. If you've talked to a lot of Microsoft people, we love acronyms for our title names. Technical Solution Professional. That means I'm on the data platform team, so I'm in charge of any product which is data related. So that means SQL Server, I'm talking about a lot. Power BI, I'm talking about a lot at the moment because it's one of the cool new things. And it's moving very fast, but also machine learning, real-time analytics, Azure Data Catalog, Azure Data Lake, and Azure SQL Data Warehouse as well. So a lot of different services. So for today, we're going to be looking at Power BI and more specifically the developer part of Power BI, so the actual back end of Power BI and how you can be empowered to do more things. I will start off with a conversation and say that if you are looking for kind of what is Power BI and the front-end consumer side of Power BI, Grant Paisley later on will be doing a session. And I've instructed him to go heavy on that front-end part. So with that, what I thought we'd do, I was going to start with slides first, but I'm not going to because they weren't prepared in that way. I thought we'd just start, and I'll just level set what Power BI is so that we're all kind of on the same page. So Power BI is Microsoft's cloud-hosted BI service. Today, there doesn't exist an on-premise Power BI. We made some announcements last week that you will eventually be able to publish Power BI desktop reports to reporting services. And that'll give you kind of a pathway to on-prem Power BI, but it doesn't exist in entirety today. Happy to talk about that afterwards if people want to hear. Not much information though. So this Power BI, on the front, you've got a whole set of dashboards. Each one of these dashboards are actually, inside the dashboard, there's a set of tiles. Each one of these tiles actually drill down into another report, which sits underneath. So if internet's being nice, you notice that tile goes ahead and drills through down to the bottom. There we go, the report opens. The reports are nice and interactive as well. So when I click them, everything goes ahead and changes and all of that good stuff. We're working on ways to make it more faster and efficient to use. So there's things like if you were to go to this Get Data tab down here, you'll see a couple of ways to import data into the service. You'll see My Organization, Services, Files, Databases. If I go Services, click, you'll see these are a whole bunch of SaaS vendors that we're working with at the moment to create content packs. The content packs let you just sign up, use a username and password, you get a dashboard in about a minute or two. And it's what you expect. So if you're using, say, Google Analytics today, you will get a dashboard that looks at all your web traffic and the users who are sitting on the site and their different locations. I know for Salesforce as well, you actually get a choice of two dashboards. You get a sales employee or a sales manager dashboard, and you can choose that and that comes through. Now, I won't be talking about what will eventually happen, to my understanding is we will actually open this up so developers can jump on and other vendors can start making their own content packs to put on the portal. I should say if anyone's in that boat and wants to come talk to me, come talk to me. It's more about getting you guys prepped now for when it does eventually come out. Now, so that's Power BI in general. Now we'll swap back to slides. 5. So Power BI, the Developer Edition. I'll start here. So life as a developer. So if you go onto the Power BI site, if you want to find the Developer tab, it's all the way down at the bottom, unfortunately. It's down at the bottom and it's under the information, so you go Developers. In terms of options for developers, there's kind of 4 main areas that the Power BI team's broken it into. The first 2 options are actually prerequisites to dealing with Power BI. I'm gonna, as a part of this presentation, we'll walk through a screenshot of how to configure Azure AD for Power BI. The next area is integrating Power BI to your apps. So this can either be through, I'm going to show you you can either embed a tile today You can add and maintain data sets as well through the API. So I'll often do that if I've got a real-time data source going to Power BI and I want to flush out the cache of the real-time data source. And then you've got an import API as well, and then some other stuff as well growing. One thing you don't have today is embedding the whole dashboard into a blog, and that will come through the developer side, just not yet. They're working on it as we speak. It's one of the #1 customer requests. Contributing back to Power BI. So this is one of the more interesting parts, to be honest. So Microsoft, we made the announcement that we open sourced all of the visualizations for Power BI. They're written in a thing called D3 in JavaScript. I'm going to take you through the SDK. I'm also going to take you through the one that I submitted as well. We had a nice best visual contest video where you'll see I'm in it, which was kind of interesting. And that's kind of the custom visual. We've had about 20 different visualizations submitted already, and they are full-fledged submissions. I'll show you how to get access to them. I'll show you how to use them as well. And those are the 4 different areas for Power BI. Now, an agenda for today. So what we're going to go through first is using the REST API, and more specifically, we'll go through, I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you the awesome documentation we have. Then I'll show you embedding tiles within an app. I wanted to get a live demo of importing a Power BI desktop file to Power BI, but I did not have the time. But I do have a code sample for you. And then we'll go through the custom visual SDK, a walkthrough of the framework, kind of how it's built out. So if you do want to get into that, you can. And then I don't know if we'll get through building a visual, but we'll go through mine. Cool. So the first part to talk about is Power BI as for security. The authentication mechanism that it uses is Azure Active Directory. So behind the scenes, what we use is actually O365 logins and users. So when you log into Power BI effectively, you use your O365 credentials, and then what happens is we attach a license after you log into Power BI. We do it transparently behind the scenes so a business user can jump on, start using Power BI, but IT is still notified at the same time. That's how it's been built out. A bit different because people kind of ask me, oh, how do I provision a user for Power BI? You don't have to do that. We do that for you. Unless you've blocked it, then you will have to do it. You can block it though. So I should say as well, there's a link down the bottom. If you do have more questions about security, the team did release a security white paper, which does detail out the location of where Power BI is stored, data center-wise, and all of the encryption at the different levels and how the documents are all handled. So go have a look at that. So the first part of developing for Power BI, you're going to need to configure an application inside of Azure Active Directory. You can see that's the portal that's our one, and I scrubbed out the Microsoft part so you couldn't read that. So there, once you've created, so you create a new application, and then so you go there, application, add it down the bottom. The next thing you do is you choose native client application as opposed to web application. The next, oh, that faded. Okay, that's not right. So the one behind, so you'll see it's kind of faded, but, oh, that's right. The next part is you'll go and hit the redirect URI, and you should be able to pick up the redirect URI from the Power BI docs. The last area is once you've actually added the application, you'll press another button, which is Add Application, where you're actually going to choose Power BI as an option, so the Power BI service. And this is basically saying for any user who connects through your application, through to Azure AD, is going to get certain permissions to Power BI. So on the next screen, what you'll see is then you go ahead and configure which permissions you want the user to get when going to Azure Active Directory. This does mean if you are developing it from a third-party point of view, you will need whoever you're developing the work for to have done this already. So you can get into their Power BI tenant. Cool. Next. Okay, so that's the security, very fast view of the security side. It's not too bad to do. There's some great Docker on it as well. So the first area we'll go into, so integrating Power BI to your apps. So 3 areas today that you can do. One is maintaining data sets in Power BI. So like I said, so create, add, remove rows, clear data sets, and remove data sets. The next part is embedding tiles into applications. So I may show it, I'm not sure. I may show it, we had a developer/partner called DevScope. They built an amazing PowerPoint plugin for Power BI, so you can actually embed tiles into Power BI presentations. That's one of the examples of the embed. It's a really nice plugin as well. If you ever need to show anyone PowerPoint with Power BI, go use it. Import Power BI desktop files is the other one, the last one. So you have the ability to programmatically actually import Power BI desktop files into different users' environments from the API. You've got a couple of options when doing this. You can either connect through to OneDrive for business, or you can do a straight upload to powerbi.com as well. Yeah. Cool. Okay. With that, I should say, whilst I'm going through, if people want to start, I'm very prone with Power BI, just keep talking. So if you have questions, let me know. So the first thing I'll show you, so if you go here onto powerbi.com, like I said before, scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see it here, developers. Click developers and go through. You'll see those are the 4 icons that I had before. If you want documentation on how to do what I just walked you through, that's there. If we go, I'll go try the API. And then it's going to load Apiary, which is where they host the documentation. Now, Apiary is very good because what it lets you do is when I click this, it comes across here. No one's going to be able to see that. Anyone see that? Okay. It's not too important once there. You'll see though, when you click it, you can basically get code samples for all the different languages that you want to use. So if you're .NET, if you're Java, if you're Python, if you're PHP, it's all there for you because it is a REST API. You'll notice as you go through, so list all dashboards, list all tiles. So list all dashboards would give you the list of dashboards that a user has access to. Tiles would list all the tiles inside a particular dashboard. Getting a tile gets a specific tile. Data sets, it walks you through what a data set JSON structure looks like, the different data types that Power BI expects. Listing all the data sets that a user has access to, creating a data set, listing all the tables inside a data set. So inside Power BI, you have a data model sitting behind a file, and inside that data model, there's multiple tables. So you can list all of them. Updating an existing schema for a table as well, so if that's relevant. So if you wanted to know, we have I'm not going to demo it, but we have an amazing connector for a service called Stream Analytics. Basically, Stream Analytics is our real-time data feed, which you can post through to Power BI. If you make a change in Stream Analytics and it needs to update Power BI, that's the endpoint that it uses to actually do it. Table rows, add rows to a table in a data set, clear the rows in a table, and groups. So yeah, list all groups. I should say, if people don't know what groups are, I didn't show that, I never do. Up here in Power BI, you'll notice here that I'm working in my workspace currently, but what I have is actually other workspaces underneath which are called group workspaces, where I can work in a group collaboratively with somebody else. So this is everything I've got access to. Oh, I hope there's no clients on there. Otherwise you know who's been working. And then you can go and click through. You can share through them, all of that. So listing all of them out. So once you've played with, once you that, you can get the sample from there. I've got Visual Studio already open. And I was debating whether I should do this live, and I didn't trust myself. Okay, so the first thing I'll do, so I've got here an MVC, an ASP.NET MVC application sitting underneath. The nice thing with MVC, so I've got my home controller here, so when it spawns just straight away, it's going to hit this page. I've got my index here. Now, the first thing I'm doing is I'm calling this getToken method, which I've written. What this getToken method's going to do, and I'll walk you through in a second, it goes ahead and talks to Azure Active Directory, requests that I want to access it, and then returns back a token that you use to pass and interact with the API. So I'll show you it. Looks like this. So this is what it looks like. So you've got your resource URI there. That doesn't actually change, so that'll be the same regardless of whatever application you're developing. You've got your client ID. That will change. That client ID you get from the Azure Active Directory application when you register it. So after you've gone through that process that we saw before, you'll see a client ID, and that's what you need to bring into Power BI. The redirect URI, which isn't too important. The authority URI, that doesn't change either. I new up an auth context, and I call this acquire token method. Now, a lot of people do ask me as well, so this one, when I run it, it will actually launch a pop-up to prompt me to log in. There is also an acquire token silent method, which you can use to get around the pop-up. You will have to have called the acquire token in a certain amount of time though, because what it does is it gets the cache token from a previous call. When we go here, the next thing you'll see is the URI to my dashboard. So that's that nice string there. You can find that if you go to the Power BI dashboard and in the URL, you'll see it here. So that's that one, points to my Contoso retail dashboard. Once you've done that, so then I've got a method called getTiles here, where I'm passing in the dashboard URI and the token. So that's another one that I wrote last night after Movie World, because we all had a lot of fun. So what I do here is, so I use something called HTTP client. If you're using C# and .NET, you know about it. If you don't, so if you're writing a command line application, go to NuGet and actually go ahead and look for HTTP client and import it into the command line app. I go here, I add the authorization to the request header. I execute get async command, and you'll notice the get async. So it's beta/myorg/dashboards, the URI to the dashboard, and then \tiles. What actually happens is when you make that request, the Power BI is smart enough, it'll reroute the URL back to your dashboard. So you don't have to supply the full qualified name back to your tenant there. So that myorg is actually real, and that's what you should type. Next, I do response.content.read as string.result, and then I deserialize the object to be a getTiles response. Now, a getTiles response looks like this. It's got an array which has a set of tiles. If you look at what a tile looks like, this is what a tile looks like inside of Power BI. So A, it has a title, and that's the thing that you'll see above. B, it has a subtitle, so that's the subtitle that sits underneath. Lastly, it has the embed URL for it, which is probably going to be the most important. And last is the embed data. The embed URL is what you will use to embed it into an iframe. Once you've done that, that's all good. We'll run it, and we'll see if it works. in Internet Explorer. Not Edge yet. Edge does work, I should say. Edge doesn't let me zoom to a custom level. So when that plays, it launches. The next thing it'll do is it'll prompt me for my login. Hopefully, Microsoft Visual Studio is collecting data. That's nice. May be helpful. Being slow today. Eventually, or not. What should happen is could be internet connection. It should pop up with the actual login screen that you're used to seeing for O365. If you got SSO, it'll work very nicely. That'll redirect, and then you should get the embed URL, and I'll show you where. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Whilst I'm talking. And then you'll get the embed URL. So that comes up with mine just there. When I go and click that, so that's logging into my AD for work. When I go click that, that goes and passes through. You notice it'll breakpoint, and this is what comes back for that dashboard. So if I go here to this, you'll see a whole bunch of tiles which get returned inside of there. For each of those tiles, what they look like is this. So there was a tile on there with a title of month-over-month sales, and that's the embed URL that you have to use to embed it into a web app or a different type of application. Now, embedding it, I've got across here. So, index. So the first thing you're going to notice, at the top of the page, I have this function, and this is inside the documentation as well. I didn't custom write this. You'll see here that I go at the beginning, I go access token equals the model.token. So I've actually stored the token in the response when I'm passing it back to MVC, so you'll see it here. You need to do that when you go and embed the URL, because to embed it, you do need to pass through the authentication. So people in the audience might notice, because I have to do that, there is no way at the moment to embed an anonymous tile into a web app. So you do have to pass through the Azure AD to embed a URL. I should say that is another request that the team is working on back in Redmond. It's more of a licensing issue as opposed to a technical issue, if people want to know. When you go through, that's the access token. Next, what I do is I post it through, and I say document.getElementID to refer to it, and I post the message to that iframe. The iframe down here looks like this. So I've got my ID, I've got my onload parameter, and then I've got that embed URL sitting inside there. The experience, I shouldn't have closed that. We'll see a second time Power BI if it's faster. Oh, it is. IIS might be cached. The experience to what that looks like will look like there'll be a little rectangle on the screen. You'll see in a second, which I'll show them. This is why a lot of the time I say I should video record these. Here, go ahead and click that. And then when it loads, it's going to load that familiar, oh no, it's not because I had a breakpoint. Continue. It's going to load that home page. Load that home page. Come on. There we go, getting there. And you'll see a little rectangle there. Now, if it's behaving, you'll see it's a bit transparent. Oh, there you go. And then it comes through onto the web app right there. So that's how you can embed tiles into your apps today. Go take a look at it. Lots of exciting stuff there. I should say the eventual, so like I said, the eventual move will be to allow you to embed the whole dashboard and not just that tile. So that's the next logical step for it. Now, that's embedding a tile into Power BI. The next thing I thought I would show you, so I will show you the import code. So I've got the import code down here. What you want to do with the import is you want to set up your HTTP client. You're going to do a post request to the service, and you're going to do a post request to this. So https api.powerbi.com/beta/myorg/imports. When you post through to that, what you do is you give your token to it again. Because you've given the token, it'll resolve it, and then you'll be able to post it through. You notice there I've used a multi-part form data content, because what I'm doing is I'm passing through the file name, and then I'm passing through a byte array of the Power BI desktop file that's sitting on my local PC. Now I'm not going to run that one. That means effectively you should be able to post on behalf of a user to a user's website. So we do see a lot of partners actually starting to build Power BI into their solutions, more from a click here and import into your environment. And that's the way we prescribe it at the moment as well. Cool, and with that, that is the embedding and importing into Power BI. I'll swap back to slides. 5. There we go. That's right. So the next area is contributing to Power BI. Now, contributing to Power BI, you've got main way to do it at the moment is to build a custom visual. Like I said before, the custom visuals are built in something called D3. If you want to know, the service itself is actually the front end of the service, even the server side to a certain degree, is built in a language called TypeScript. So TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. What it does is it gives strongly typed classes to JavaScript. So it makes code very maintainable and easy, and that's why the Power BI team use it. In terms of frameworks that they use to do the whole thing, they actually use AngularJS. So I don't know who's heard of AngularJS, but that's what the Power BI team use. AngularJS is one of those new ones that's kind of, it is widely being used in the industry now. It wasn't made by Microsoft, it was made by Google. But what happens is the AngularJS team are now working with the TypeScript team, and the next version of AngularJS is going to be written with TypeScript underneath. So that's AngularJS 2. So what I do is first, do I have audio for the presentation? Man runs across. I will see. I'll press. I do. There we go. Hello, my name is Travis Sansom. I'm from Sydney, Australia. I entered one of the custom visuals in the most recent Power BI Best Visual contest.
Hi, I'm Darko.
I'm Hussein.
Hi, I'm Rina.
And together, the three of us are the team from Cambridge Technology Partners who participated in the Power BI Visual Contest.
Hi, my name is Zaminder and I have created 2 custom charts for Microsoft Power BI. I really like the underlying model and the way they are giving chance to developers to create their own custom charts.
Ciao, sono Daniele, creatore di Synoptic Panel by SQL BI e vincitore del primo premio del Best Visual Contest for Power BI.
I think Power BI is a phenomenal platform, and I'm really glad to have been part of the visual contest. I was really impressed with the community and with the platform itself. It's just so developer friendly. I think the new gallery can really be a game changer.
I'm so excited about Power BI and how it's open source, and the ability to contribute as a community member. I think it's fantastic. I can actually change how these great visualizations are coming out and affect how other people are able to do it as well. It's just brilliant.
So I've got to say, if you didn't enter, you missed out, because the guy who won it, he won $5,000 for entering the contest and winning that competition. So quite a good. It was going to buy my next Surface Book, but I didn't win, right? So that's Power BI Best Visual. What I'll do is I'll swap across and I'll show you the custom visual gallery that they were all talking about and they were all saying is awesome, because it is. There have been some new additions recently, which is good. So app.powerbi.com/visuals. I can't forget it. It's embedded into my brain now. You'll see here that this is the visual gallery. So you'll see here all of the visuals underneath. So these are all of the ones that have been written by the community and Microsoft itself as well. So some notable ones that I like, although I'm not supposed to pick favorites. But the bullet chart is very nice. So if people are seeing other apps, you'd be used to that one. You'll see, which other one was, everyone likes the chord one because it's colorful and pretty. I don't like it. I'm one of the unpopular opinions. Card states, hexapin, radar charts as well, if anyone's a radar chart fan. So that one was submitted. You'll see here, Sparkline. Sparkline. That's new as of yesterday. Sunburst as well is another nice one if you're visualizing hierarchies. The one that won it was this one, so Synoptic Panel by SQL BI. They did deserve to win. Their visualization, what you do is you load in an image, and then you can specify the different areas, and then based on those areas, you can highlight them dependent on your values. So you can get a venue mapping kind of solution. I should say the other interesting one, somebody the other day told me, they were like, oh, well, you could use it as a workflow diagram to highlight the components as they went through. And I was like, that's a very good use for it as well. Creativity. Table heat maps, tornado chart, and last but not least, our word cloud, because everyone likes a word cloud. So that's the custom visual gallery. Like you just heard me then, that one is new, the Sparkline, as of yesterday, and it's submitted by Prologica, LLC. You want to say as well, if you have problems as well with any of the visualizations, just slam that contact author button. Yeah, because everyone likes to hear. Cool. So that's the custom visual gallery. In terms of how do you bring them into Power BI, so I'll show you in Power BI Desktop first. So if I launch Power BI Desktop, how long is Power BI Desktop going to launch? If anyone sees that tile moving, it is actually real time. That's why it's coming live in from Twitter. That's why it keeps moving. When that launches, when that launches, what you'll see is you'll have a bar on the right-hand side where you see all the visualizations and all the tiles. What you'll see is a ... What you're going to do is you click that dot off. The first thing you'll do is you go across this visual gallery and you go and select one of the visuals and you hit download visual. That'll download a file down to your local PC. You go ahead and choose that file after you hit the ... So swapping across to it, you'll see it there, that little button there. So you click that little button, it imports the visual into the Power BI desktop. You can do that in the browser as well. Once it's imported, it travels with the document. So regardless of where it is, it's got that custom visual inside it. The other thing to note, when they do import it, there will be a pop-up that comes up at the top, which says, warning, you've got a custom visual, do you want to render it? And you need to hit enable custom visual. the end user needs to do that. I should say, so if that is annoying to you, that is a great thing to put on the feedback to the Power BI team. I can tell you a lot of people have already said it is annoying. So what they are looking at doing is they are looking at putting a checkbox so that you can say, don't remind me in the future. But that's how you do it. So you would click this, you would look for your file. So imports, there's one of the cautions. Import, go to my downloads, and we see what Travis downloads. And then you can see there. So they're suffixed with .pbi viz. Cool. Swapping across. Am I meant to finish at 10:15? Is that? 9:15. 9:30. Oh, 9. Oh, perfect. 9:30. Someone's like 9:30. We're gonna rush out of here. That's not. Cool. Okay. So the Power BI Visual SDK. So we're gonna walk through this now. So one, the first thing you've got to do, and I'd advise, is register for a thing called a GitHub account. So I don't know who's used GitHub before. GitHub is a repository location which has source control. It uses Git for its source control. That's where the Power BI visuals are hosted. So you can see it up here on the right-hand side. So that's the with the repository. The next thing to do is fork the repository. So a lot of the time you'll be tempted, especially if you're doing it for the first time, you'll be tempted just to hit, there's a clone on desktop button. I'd advise don't doing the clone on desktop. Make sure you fork it and get your own version of it. Next, install Visual Studio Community 2015. Or if you have MSDN, install a higher version. But there is a community version now. Install a thing called Git. So Git is the way that you're going to push and sync data, sync your code against GitHub. Next is install a thing called Node.js. And then clone a copy of the forked repo, navigate to the directory on your local PC, and then run a thing called npm install once you go to once you've navigated to the directory on-prem. What run npm install does, it uses the npm stands for the Node package manager, and it's from Node.js. What it'll do is it'll take all the dependencies that are inside the Power BI project, it'll expand them out and install them onto your local machine. So it's all nicely tied up there. So two things. So when you get started, so some things that I learned. They tell you to do all this, but you kind of skip this part in the documentation. So getting started. So before you press the debug button, right-click the application. Right-click the actual the top the Power BI -visuals text. Right-click it and press Property Pages. When you click Property Pages, set the thing to no build. Because what happens is for the Power BI visuals, there's actually, they use continuous integration, so it always is compiling in the background. So you don't need that no build. If you do have the build on and you go build, you might be in for a nasty surprise. Not nasty, it'll just flash up with an error down the bottom and say there's a lot of errors, but there's not. That's the file directory structure. I will show it inside Visual Studio as well. So if you look at the file structure, there are a couple of things to see. So Power BI Visual, so, oh, Cortana, don't. She's not behaving this morning. So build, gulp, source, and then when you go into VS, the main part where you'll be playing is in the clients folder. Inside the clients folder, there are a couple of things. So the Power BI Visuals Playground is where you can play with the different custom visuals and debug your visual that you've written. The Power BI Visual Tests, The other one is the visuals folder, which is where all of the visuals actually sit. And that's where you can see the ones which are developed by Microsoft and the ones where you add them yourself as well. I'll go into that further. And then there's Visuals Common and Visuals Data, which you won't have to worry about. The next thing to do before you start is to go into the Power BI Visual Playground, right-click it, and say Set as Start Page. So when you set that as Start Page, then that's what's going to start up the first time. Now, with that, we'll swap across back to my machine. And I'll open up Visual Studio. Didn't have this one prepped. Open up Visual Studio. Depends how long. I'm using Professional. And then this one. That'll go ahead and open. Open up, preparing solution. Let's go. Taking a lot longer than I thought. When that opens, it'll look like before. Come on. Scroll. Thinking. Should come through. What I'll do whilst that's doing, I'll swap. I'll come back because I can see it. Okay. Oh no, it just loaded. Go back. Of course. Okay. So this is the thing. This is the solution. If I go and I'll close everything. Oh, computer, why are you lagging? I'll pin my Solution Explorer so you can see it. So this is the solution for it. So Power BI Visuals, then clients down here. I'll close that funnel chart. You'll see here the Power BI's Visuals Playground that's there. And that's a website. What I will show you as well, so if your Power BI thing is working, what should happen is, mine's not working. What should happen is there'll be an output tab, I think it's in the output. You'll see an output tab of it actually continuously running. So when you hit Control S and save your documents, it'll actually recompile the files for you. And that's where it'll flash up with an error if something's wrong. What we'll do is I'll go and show you. So with any luck, I'll hit play. And everything will be good in the world of Power BI. There are some tips as well. Oh no, I'll get to the tips at the end. The way I learned how to write the custom visuals was by looking at other people's custom visuals. That's probably the best advice I can give. They are fair straightforward. Oh, actually, whilst that's loading, I didn't show what D3 was. I just realized. So I don't know who's seen D3. Edge d3.js. D3 is a wonderful library. If you need charting, they are awesome. Just as a bit of a learning curve. Oh, can't reach that page. Go through to Bing, because everyone's using it, right? Up. D3.js. That's their official site. Go through. So this is D3. It's basically a whole bunch of JavaScript visualizations that have been written over time. There are a lot of them. So if I go here, you will see, where's an interesting one? They're all interesting. What's that one? You'll see here, so here's a Tilford tree. You'll see a whole bunch of connections there, and then that's the code underneath to actually write that visualization. For most of them, you can actually just take most of the code and port it across to Power BI. So there are going to be some things which you're going to need to do, which I'll point out in a second. So that's a D3 one, and that's D3. Now, when it has finished going, so here, click, click. This is what the Power BI Visuals Playground looks like. So it's nice and simple, it's very bare bones. If I zoom in a bit more, that's a bit better. You notice up here when you click the select a visual, when you don't, because it's frozen. When you click that selected visual, that's where you can toggle, but localhost isn't responding. When you select that visual, it'll pop down with a drop down, and that'll give you this list of visualizations which you can toggle between. So that's how you toggle between them. That's how you're going to debug them. One suggestion that I probably shouldn't be preaching, but I do a mix between using Google Chrome to debug it and using Internet Explorer. What do I use Internet Explorer for? I use Internet Explorer actually for selecting the different parts inside the actual inside the actual visual, and I do that through that fantastic picker that you have, and that's basically so I can check the CSS and the actual the sizing of the element actually in there to actually debug that. I use Chrome in general for everything else. So yeah. When I go through here, okay, it's not responding. Give up on that. That's that. I'll show you the visualizations. So don't do that. Let's work. Task kill, yes. There we go. When that stops, okay, so here we are. So once you go, that's the Power BI Best Visual, that's the Power BI Visuals Playground. When we go actually into the visuals themselves, this is the visuals. You've got a couple of things inside this folder. So you've got the visuals themselves down here. So you'll see here a whole bunch of visuals listed, including mine, that's there. You'll see here as well that there's this plugins.capability file, which you'll need to edit when building a custom visual. So I'll show you. If I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see there a whole bunch of mappings to them. I think it's in plugins as well that you'll need to edit. So you'll notice this plugins page, what it does is it lists all the visualizations out and it maps them to two things. So one, it maps them to their name, which is important. Second, it maps them to their capabilities that they have. And your capabilities actually list out to Power BI what your visualization can do. So in terms of what fields does it take in, what are your different properties as well, in terms of formatting and all of that. So if you want people to be able to color your chart, which please do, because I remember back in the time when Power BI first came out and everyone screamed and was like, you can't color your shapes. So when you're building a custom visual, please put coloring support, or else I'll have customers yelling at me. That's that. So you've got this concept of capabilities there, and then your create function, which calls the constructor of your visualization underneath. I'll next show you the visual one. I'll show you my visualization. So node link was the one I submitted. I'm going to skip over some stuff. So I've got a whole bunch of classes at the beginning, which basically are just my way of trying to shape the data model that I have. So I submitted a node link diagram. Basically what happens with the node link diagram is I have a whole bunch of circles, a whole bunch of entities, and then they have a relationship to each other. So there's the entities themselves, which I'm calling nodes, and then there's the link between the two nodes. And hence why I have these two classes. So one, I've got a node, which has a name, which is the name of the node. And then two, I've got the link. So the link has a pointer to the source node, a pointer to the target node, and then the value that represents that relationship between them. Because what I want to do is actually want to size the link based on what the relationship is. You'll also notice I've got another class here called link properties. That one is used to store the properties of a link. So what I did was I made it so that you could hard code the actual thickness levels of the visualization. So I think down the bottom I had a default, but you can override that. Next, I have a node properties as well, so a property for the node. You don't have to make all these property classes. I just did it to make it look nicer. And then you'll notice I've got a node link model, which actually is the model of my node link diagram. The reason why I do that is I'm just abstracting it so that it's easier to add in different objects. So there you'll see I have an array of links, an array of nodes. I have a couple of functions, so tell me whether a node exists, get the node by its index, add the node, so taking a name, does it exist, then pushing on a new node to the stack, and then get node by name, so a filter command. You'll notice when you're going through it, so that's actually called TypeScript. So there's some funky things with TypeScript. So you'll notice public add node, so that's a function name itself. You'll notice there's these colons here, actually, and then after you see the type declaration. Same as you see that after here inside this, which is a bit unusual to anyone who's played with other programming languages. You'll also notice this equals as well. The next part is down here though. So this is my actual class for my node link. I implement a base class called iVisual. So that's the first thing you're going to need to do. So implementing iVisual. If we go down, I've got root, which is actually the root element of my visual actually on the page inside the website, inside Power BI. I'm storing what's called a data view, and we're going to walk through what data views are because that was one of probably the more complex topics to cover. I have an init method, so that's one of the methods that you'll implement, and that's basically initializing the visualization. So that's what Power BI will call by default when the page loads up. The next thing that will call, it'll call that, and then it'll call this update method, which you'll need to implement. So update, it takes in visual update options. You'll notice what I do is here, I call this converter method. So I initialize the visualization, I pass a data view to it, so that's what Power BI gives me. That's what the service actually maps what the user's dragged in. So if the user drags in a couple of fields, it's gonna map to a different data view to you. I take that in and I convert that back to my own model that you saw before. And that's what I use the converter method for here. So I'll show you the converter method here. I use a thing called, so the data view for all the different data views, and I'm going to go through this after. For the data views, there's a couple of different mappings that you can choose from. The mapping that you choose will affect the UI that's given to the user at the end of the day. So The reason why I chose categorical is because I wanted to have 2 fields and then I wanted to have 1 value field. So for the user, it was very much drag the first node into the first box, drag the second node into the second box, and then third box value. And I'll show you where that's defined as well. I go through all of that. I go and I add the models. I traverse through it. I'm not going to go through that piece of code. The best thing, so go and have a look at the other ones. So go have a look through that. Then what I do is I go and actually draw the visualization down here. So I go this.root, I set the height and the width. This is all from D3. I would say go look at the D3 visuals and just see taking from there, because I didn't actually, the sneaky part of it is I didn't write a lot of the code myself. I did the good old thing where you don't reinvent the wheel, you take someone else's and improve it. You notice there, so some things I'm doing, so I'm passing things like default link. I'll show you down the bottom. So a couple of different attributes. There's this other method that you'll need to implement called enumerate object instances. Now, enumerate object instances, it's the method that you'll implement to let Power BI know of the properties that your visualization has. So if anyone's come and played at the Data Den, everyone should. You would have played with if you played with the Power BI tutorial, you'll notice that I get you to change the color of the visualization and all of that, and change the title and do all of that. To do that, you need to set up this method down here. So Power BI knows that for mine, I've got one which is called, a section which is called link properties. And then inside link properties, I've got 4 different fields. So you can set the default color of a link. You can set the highlight color of a link as well. So when I hover over it, when you hover over a link, the link will change the color. So by default, I choose red, but not everyone likes to have red as the highlight color. Minimum thickness, maximum thickness. I've even got link distance in there. I did a fancy scaling thing where if you change the height and the width of the visualization, it'll change the size of the visualization dynamically on the fly. Do think about things like that. Node labels as well. So this one, please support. So one of the things I noticed in the best visual contest, not a lot of people put on data labels for your visualization. If you're implementing it, please put data labels, because you can imagine that's another one that users kind of look at and go, I kind of expect that to be there, and it's not. That's all of that. Once you've implemented all of that, that's the visualization done itself. The next thing you'll be looking at doing is doing a capabilities for the visualization. So capabilities, where's my one? There. If I scroll down, it's collapsed at the moment. The first thing is you'll implement a class called visual capabilities. Inside the class, you've got a couple of things. So you've got data roles, and inside data roles, I list out the different fields I'm expecting the user to get. So for me, I've got node from, which is the node that things are coming from. So that's the one usually on the left. I've got node 2, which is the node, the pairing node that it's connected to. And then I've got the values as well. So the values. So when the user actually goes onto the page, I'm not going to show it because we're running out of time, they'll have 3 boxes now. So they have one box which says node from, one box which is node 2, the other one which is values. The thing I should point out as well, you'll notice, so I have, the first one is a grouping. So that tells Power BI to actually group it, similar to like you'd expect a pivot table in Excel, or if you have seen Power BI, to do that grouping. The second one is a grouping. The third one is a measure. So if you ever use Power BI and you try and drag a field into it and it complains that it's not a measure or it's not a blah, that's because somebody set it in the visualization there. And do that. The next thing is you'll see the data view mapping. So you heard of me talk about a data view before. What you do is you take those fields and you'll notice I'm returning a categorical there. and that's how I decide for it to come back as a categorical mapping there. So I say the conditions, I only want there to be 2 rows, maximum 1. Categories, so basic categories, what you can do there is, I'm saying for in node from. You can have, actually up the top, you can have multiple fields inside that node from to give drill through capabilities, and that's how you enumerate through all of them. Then I say group by the node to, and I say select the values inside values, and then I have row count there as well. The next thing to note is the node properties down here that we talked about before. So these are actually the node properties as well. So you'll see here I say, so properties for node general, the default's color. I'm going to say, here's the description. So when somebody hovers over the property on the right-hand side, that's the description that comes up. The type is going to be fill, and it's going to be a color. That's the default color. Then there's going to be the default radius, and that's what you'll need to implement. So that's where you can choose all your defaults. That's all that. That's all. So you've got the capabilities and the visualization itself. What I will do as well is, if I can remember the... I've forgotten it. Basically, when you actually go to go to the Power BI Visual Playground inside your solution to debug the visualization, once you're done, you go up to here, you put in a parameter, and I think it's called dev tools enabled equals true, or it's got preview inside it. You enter in that, it's going to change it won't change the page at all, but what it'll do in the settings bar, actually the cogwheel up the top, if you click it, it'll come down with a new thing called Dev Tools. When you click Dev Tools, it'll take you through to a page which looks like your visual playground. And basically what you do is just copy and paste your code from the playground and into that piece. From there, there'll be an export button where you can actually export the visual, and you'll get that PBVIZ file. Once that's all done, then you can submit that to the Power BI gallery. That's it. That's not loading, so we'll push on. Oh, it is. Did it come up? No. Oh, yeah, it did. Okay. Oh, that manage gateways is new. Well, tools, if it loads. Nope, it's not going to load. I should say as well, there are Channel 9 MSDN videos as well of how to go through this. That's why I stopped. So just reviewing 3 things. So Power BI Visual SDK. So the first thing we did, we wrote the code to implement the base class iVisual. The second thing we did is we implemented a class called Visual Capabilities. And then the third thing we did is thinking about that data view mapping. So when we have a user go into the user interface, how is the experience going to be like for them? Which is probably one of the most crucial parts of developing the visual. Next, I spoiled that one. I did that too fast. So data view mappings. I thought I'd go through this. So there are a couple of data view mappings that you have the choice of. So I used categorical. There is also, it says single. So single is usually used in the circumstance where you have a kind of a KPI. So the bullet chart that you saw that I showed you was actually implemented with the single one. So basically for all the fields there, they just map that to several single data views. the categorical, the table, the matrix, the tree. I'd suggest most people will resort to using the table and matrix. Try not to, because for the user it's a bit of a jarring experience. And that's it. With all of that, go have a look at them. I'll leave you with this last one. So tips and tricks. So learn from other visuals presented in the SDK. That's one of the best advice I can give. Learn from other people who have done it. You have the ability to program slicers as well. So if you want to build out filters, which we'd love you to do as well, you can build out them. Somebody did a really nice timeline slicer the other day. Think about the end user experience. Please do, really do. So things like the properties, make sure you have enough properties. Coloring, data labels, crucial. Other stuff, it's up to your imagination. Also those data view mappings, yeah, and think about the formatting options. Limitations that are inside there. So generally in most circumstances I found you can only use one data view mapping at all times. So the Power BI service doesn't know how to map two different data mappings with the same categories. Another one as well, which is kind of annoying at the moment, you can't pin custom visualizations to dashboards. So you can only have them inside reports. The estimate for that is around December, but don't hold me to that. So they are working on that at the moment. That will come through. With all of that, that's kind of the Power BI developer side of, that's the developer side of Power BI. Lots in there, go have a play with it. It's really expanding, lots of people interacting. There's a community forum as well, so if you get stuck, post questions on the community forum. I'm also on Twitter, or you can email me as well, and you can come up to me after the session if you want to grab it, because I don't have it on the slides. Yeah, and let me know if you have any problems or issues, or just want to talk about how awesome it is. Otherwise, enjoy your day, last day, and then everyone goes home. Thank you. Oh, if anyone wanted to ask any questions, but I think you need to race off to your next session. Did anyone have any questions? Oh, we do. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. If anyone did have any other general Power BI questions, you can ask. Well, yeah, so the preview should be coming out potentially either this month or next month.